Upon discovering my stepson immersed in play within his bedroom, I felt compelled to lend a hand an act that unexpectedly unfolded into an exhilarating adventure I could never have foreseen. It began on a serene Sunday afternoon, the sort of day when the house seemed almost too quiet, yet wrapped in a sense of comforting familiarity. I had devoted the greater part of the day to tidying up, immersing myself in minor tasks to occupy my thoughts. The house stood largely vacant. My husband had embarked in an unplanned fishing excursion with a few friends, rendering the weekend strikingly serene. Kyle, my stepson, occupied his room upstairs, the subtle thrum of his music seeping down to the kitchen where I lingered. Having the house to ourselves was a rare occurrence. Yet the rapport between Kyle and me had always flowed. Effortlessly, Kyle, at the age of 22, exuded a confidence that belied his youth. Yet beneath that assured exterior lay a more reserved nature that surfaced in the most unexpected of moments. As time passed, I grew to value the subtle connection that existed between us. It lacked volume and spectacle, yet it existed unwavering and reassuring. Once the dishes were done, I filled a glass with iced tea and positioned myself by the kitchen window, allowing the gentle embrace of sunlight to envelop me. The stillness ought to have brought peace, yet an unsettling energy churned inside me. The sensation was so intense that remaining still became a challenge, prompting me to seek out Kyle. After a brief pause, the soft strains of his music lingered in the air as I ascended to the top of the stairs. The door to his bedroom stood slightly ajar, allowing the sound to seep out into the quiet hallway. I paused for a heartbeat, weighing the decision to knock or to let him be yet an undeniable pull. Perhaps curiosity propelled me onward. He moved, nearer, ready to shout his name. But the view through the slender opening froze me in place. Kyle perched on the edge of his bed, his demeanor a blend of ease and concentration. His hands danced with an intent that eluded my understanding, while his eyes remained locked on the ground, a subtle crease forming on his brow as he delved into thought. My breath hitched as I grasped the significance of his actions, the closeness of the moment revealing itself before my eyes. I ought to have looked away, to have granted him the solitude he evidently believed he possessed. Yet I found myself paralyzed, anchored in place by an unusual blend of astonishment and curiosity. The vulnerability of the moment was palpable as Kyle appeared completely oblivious to the world beyond his room, and it ensnared my attention completely. The room was enveloped in the tender embrace of the afternoon sun, its warm light creating delicate shadows that highlighted the contours of his face and the graceful arc of his shoulders. I was aware that my presence there was unwarranted, yet the image of him so vulnerable and authentic ignited a profound intrigue within me, an unvoiced inquiry that demanded my attention before I could collect my thoughts. Kyle glanced up, his gaze locking onto mine through the slender opening in the door. Time appeared to freeze his expression, transforming from astonishment to an entirely different emotion, a blend of awkwardness and doubt. His hand paused, and for an instant we both remained still, ensnared in a mutual silence that felt as though it could last an eternity. I opened my mouth to speak, to offer some semblance of relief from the oppressive silence, but the words eluded me. My heart raced a wild cadence that reverberated in my ears. Kyle was the first to stir his hand, reaching for a nearby blanket to envelop himself, his cheeks blooming with a deep shade of crimson. "I didn't think you'd come upstairs," he mumbled, his voice low and heavy with embarrassment. Apologies escaped my lips, my cheeks aflame as I retreated from the threshold. "I never intended to. I was unaware." The words spilled forth in a hurried cascade, yet Kyle merely shook his head, his hand lifting slightly as if to halt my progress. "It's fine," he said swiftly, though a tremor laced his voice. "Simply, please allow me a moment." I nodded, stepping back down the hallway to the edge of the stairs, my mind a chaotic swirl of thoughts. I ought not to have remained. I ought not to have observed. Yet the vision of Kyle so exposed and defenseless lingered in my thoughts. I remained in that moment, fingers clutching the banister, striving to calm my breath. A myriad of thoughts surged through my mind, each more perplexing than the one before. Never before had I witnessed Kyle in such a manner, not merely in his appearance, but in the depths of his emotions. His expression held a resonance that echoed within mean, elusive quality that I couldn't identify yet found impossible to dismiss. At that time, I was unaware that it had ignited a spark that would ultimately evolve into something wildly exhilarating. The creak of Kyle's door swinging open jolted me from my reverie. He entered the hallway, his steps faltering, his eyes averted from my own, donned a t-shirt and shorts, his typical laid-back ensemble. Yet the rosy hue of his cheeks and the stiff tension in his stance revealed his discomfort. Apologies for that, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as Harris stood against the door frame. I never intended for you to observe that. It's all right, I responded swiftly. My voice quieter than normal, I ought to have knocked it completely, slipped my... And he nodded, his gaze finally locking onto mine for a fleeting instant before it flitted away once more. I suppose we're even now, he remarked, a subtle anxious laugh escaping his lips. Even I inquired, tilting my head slightly in perplexity. He shrugged, a faint smile playing at the edges of his lips. You've stumbled upon me. I have stumbled upon you unexpectedly. Do you recall that summer day when the bathroom door was left unlocked? The recollection surged through, igniting a fresh warmth in my cheeks. I had entirely erased that incident from me memory, that brief moment of discomfort we had dismissed with laughter back. Then text. I suppose you have a point, I replied with a chuckle, though a hint of anxiety lingered in my tone. We stand on equal ground. The tension that hung in the air began to dissipate the shared memory, serving as a delicate bridge connecting the awkwardness of the present with the effortless familiarity that had always defined our relationship. Yet amidst our laughter, an unsettling sensation lingered within me, a sense that an invisible shift had occurred between us. An unvoiced presence lingers just below the surface, poised for recognition. The laughter dissipated, giving way to a profound silence that resonated with an unfamiliarity. Kyle rested against the doorframe, arms crossed nonchalantly over his chest, yet his stance betrayed a subtle undercurrent of tension. Uncertainty gripped me, and for a fleeting moment, I contemplated descending the stairs to grant him the space I had mistakably intruded upon, yet there was something in the way. His eyes darted toward me, a mix of uncertainty and curiosity that held me firmly in my spot. It wasn't precisely discomfort. There was an essence of tenderness, a hint of fragility that drew me in, compelling me to linger at last. I spoke, my voice quieter than I had meant it to be. Would you like to discuss it? Kyle's eyes grew round with surprise, his cheeks flushing as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. What precisely should we discuss? I inquired, his voice tinged with a blend of anxiety and wit. I gave a faint smile, wishing to alleviate the unease in the air concerning any topic. If you prefer not to, that's completely fine. I merely considered that it might bring you some comfort. He paused, his eyes falling to the ground as he massaged the nape of his neck. After a brief pause, he confessed, I don't know. Somewhat mortifying. I advanced cautiously, each movement measured and intentional, as if I were drawing near totemid creature. Kyle, it's perfectly natural to experience embarrassment. Everyone experiences moments such as those. His lips curled into a subtle, self-mocking smile. Not everyone finds themselves ensnared by their stepmother. The manner in which he expressed it, a blend of jest and embarrassment, elicited a soft chuckle from me. And to my astonishment, his smile broadened just a fraction in reply. I suppose not. I conceded, resting against the wall across from him to reflect. His stance, however, if it brings you comfort, I have found myself in numerous embarrassing situations as well. You are not alone. Kyle gazed up at me, then his expression becoming gentler indeed. However, you consistently exhibit such poise as if you possess an unwavering sense of control. At all moments, their mark took me by surprise, leaving me with an unsettling sensation. I struggled to identify. I'm not as composed as you might believe, I murmured, my voice now barely above a whisper. Believe me, I've experienced my own share of instances where uncertainty reigns supreme. He regarded me intently for a moment, his brow knitting together as if he were attempting to harmonize the perception he held of me with the reality of the figure before him. It's simply strange, he remarked at last, his tone nearly reflective. You're truly distinct from father, not in a negative sense, merely distinct. Uncertain of how to reply, I opted for a gentle approach, recognizing that sometimes a change can be beneficial. Kyle nodded, yet his expression lingered in contemplation. Indeed, he remarked after a moment's hesitation. I suppose it can. The silence lingered once more. Yet this time it bore a lighter weight. I observed the tension in Kyle's shoulders begin to dissipate, the subtle creases of concern around his eyes relaxing as he settled against the dar frame. I apologize. You had to witness that, he said. After a pause, his voice now imbued with sincerity. I suppose I wasn't fully engaged in thought. It seems I'd completely overlooked the fact that you were here. It's all right, I replied, swiftly, aiming to offer him some comfort. Honestly, it's not a major concern. I simply want to ensure that you're all right. Kyle nodded. Yet he continued to avert his eyes from mine. Indeed, I am well. It's merely, I'm not quite sure, it's difficult to articulate. I tilted my head slightly, a spark of curiosity igniting within me, challenging to articulate how he paused his fingers nervously, toying with the edge of his shirt smearly. Being in the company of others can be quite challenging at times. Wouldn't you agree? There's this constant sense that I should conform to a particular standard, and whenever I stray from that path, it leaves me with the unsettling impression that I'm somehow failing. His words struck me with an intensity one hadn't anticipated, stirring a deep sense of empathy within me for him. Kyle murmured, gently stepping a little closer. There is no need to be anything but your true self. You are not obligated to fulfill anyone's expectations. Neither mine nor your father's nor anyone else's. He gazed up at me, then his eyes wide and probing, and for a fleeting moment I glimpsed the vulnerability he typically concealed. Do you truly believe that I am aware of that? I stated with conviction. Kyle, you are inherently good. There's no need for you to seek validation from others. The edges of his lips curled into a subtle smile, and I noticed the strain in his stance relaxing even more. Thank you, he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. You're welcome, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We lingered in that moment, valence enveloping us, taking on a sense of companionship. The subtle hint of a smile danced on Kyle's lips, and a wave of relief washed over me, knowing he appeared to be on the mend. Yet as the tension began to dissipate, an unsettling awareness lingered within me, a sense that an unspoken change had occurred between us. His gaze met mine, lingering just a heartbeat longer than necessary, sending a flutter through my heart that I couldn't quite comprehend. At last, Kyle stood tall, propelling himself away from the doorframe with a soft exhale. It should probably do something productive, he remarked, his voice carrying a playful lilt, yet underscored by a hint of uncertainty. Take your time, I said, a gentle smile gracing my lips. There's no need to hurry into any decisions. He nodded, our gazes locking for a fleeting moment before he turned away, vanishing into his room, the door closing gently behind him. I lingered for a moment, gazing at the shut door, while a peculiar blend of feelings churned inside me. A name eluded me for the emotions swirling within, perhaps confusion, or curiosity, but one truth stood clear. The dynamic between Kyle and me had irrevocably shifted, yet what lay ahead was even more astonishing. The remainder of the afternoon drifted by in an odd fog. I attempted to divert my attention with minor chores, folding laundry, sifting through the mail, anything that might prevent my thoughts from drifting back to that moment in the hallway. Yet regardless of my efforts, the image of Kyle's face, the fragility in his tone, remained etched in my mind, a haunting presence. I could not dispel, I assured myself, that it was merely a trivial instance of discomfort, one that we would both soon leave behind. Yet the harder I endeavored to persuade myself, the more me certainty began to whine. His gaze held a quality that was both inviting and vulnerable, igniting a profound response deep within me. As the evening approached, I found myself utterly exhausted, both in spirit and in heart. I nestled into the couch, a book in hand yearning, to immerse myself in the realm of fiction and find solace from the tempest of my mind. Yet the letters and the page merged into a haze, my focus wandering repeatedly to the shut door at the summit of the stairs. The echo of footsteps pierced through my fog, and I glanced up to find Kyle descending the stairs. His hair was a bit tousled, as if he had just risen from slumber, and there was a palpable sense of hesitation in his demeanor that caused my heart to constrict. "Hey," he murmured gently, halting at the foot of the stairs. It intended to brew a cup of tea. "Would you like me to prepare a cup for you?" The straightforwardness of the inquiry took me by surprise, and I found myself nodding before I had the chance to second. "Guess is my response. That sounds lovely. Thank you, Lee." Kyle slipped away into the kitchen, and after a brief hesitation, I found myself trailing behind, drawn in by the magnetic allure of his presence. As I entered the room, I found him already engaged in the task of filling the kettle. His actions measured and serene. The gentle murmur of the boiling water enveloped the room, harmonizing with the delicate chime of cups as he placed them upon the counter. "Do you still enjoy honey in yours?" he inquired, casting a fleeting look back at Indeed. I responded, resting against the counter while observing him closely. His tone carried a casual air, yet I couldn't shake the observation that his movements were slightly too deliberate. As if he were engaged in a subtle dance of distraction, we lingered, in quietude for a heartbeat, the air around us, punctuated solely by the gentle whistle of the kettle. A thought stirred within me, a desire to confront the unspoken tension that had settled in the atmosphere since earlier. Yet the words eluded my grasp. As the tea steeped to perfection, Kyle passed me a mug and settled against the counter, his presence a steady anchor across from me. He lifted the cup to his lips, savoring a delicate sip, his eyes drawn to the tendrils of steam dancing above. He finally spoke, his voice quiet yet steady. "Reflecting on what you had said." I inclined my head ever so slightly, poised for him to elaborate. He elaborated on the notion of not needing to meet anyone's expectations. "It seems I've devoted so much of my energy to fulfilling the expectations of others that I've lost sight of my own desires." His words struck me with the force of a blow, and I placed my mug down, gently wary that my trembling hands might reveal my turmoil. "Kyle," I murmured gently, "it's perfectly all right to feel that way. It's perfectly natural to be in the process of discovery. It's perfectly acceptable not to possess all the answers at this moment." He inclined his head with deliberation, his gaze at last connecting with mine. Yet, what if I find myself trembling at the thought of uncovering the truth? What if I discover something I don't appreciate? The unfiltered truth in his voice constricted my throat, compelling me to inhale deeply before I could find the words. Tore a plea. "It's perfectly natural to feel fear," I remarked, my voice quivering. "Just a touch. Yet you possess a strength beyond your own perception. There's no need to confront everything in a single moment. Embrace each moment as it comes and have faith that your path will reveal itself." Kyle's lips curved into a subtle smile, Yet it failed to illuminate his eyes. Your words render it effortlessly simple. It is not, I confessed, my own smile laced with a hint of melancholy. Yet you are not solitary. I stand by your side unwavering and steadfast through every circumstance. For a brief instant he simply regarded me, his eyes unwavering and probing. The fragility in his expression was nearly unbearable, stirring an inexplicable ache deep within my chest. "Thanks," he murmured at last, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "There's no need for gratitude," I responded, my voice gentle. "That is the essence of family." Kylo nodded, yet his expression lingered in contemplation, hinting at unspoken thoughts that danced on the tip of his tongue. I lingered in silence, allowing him the opportunity to share his thoughts. Yet the moment slipped away, and he opted for another sip of his tea. Instead, the stillness that enveloped us was not awkward yet. It bore a certain gravity, laden with the unsaid thoughts and feelings that we both hesitated to confront. I felt compelled to connect with him to provide a semblance of comfort. Yet I found myself uncertain of what he truly required, or if he had any awareness of it himself. At last, Kyle stood tall and placed his mug upon the counter. "I think I'm going to head to bed," he said, his tone airy yet laced with a hint of uncertainty. "Very well," I replied, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. "Sleep." "Well, Kyle, good night," he replied, his gaze lingering on me for a fleeting moment longer before he turned and vanished. Up the stairs in the stillness of the kitchen, I lingered long after he had gone. My mind a chaotic swirl of confusion and yearning. The days, burdens bore heavily upon me, stirring a peculiar blend of feelings, anxiety, affection, and an elusive depth that eluded my grasp. Ascending the stairs to my sanctuary, an unsettling sensation lingered, whispering that this was merely the prologue. A change had occurred between Kyle and me, an unarticulated yet unmistakable shift. Yet despite my efforts to dismiss it, I was acutely aware that it would only intensify as time passed. Yet the tale was far from over, no. The climax was approaching now. The house was quiet once more, yet it carried a different essence. This time the atmosphere felt dense, as though thessalent. Exchanges between Kyle and me had permeated the very walls residing I, reclined in bed, my gaze fixed on them. Sealing the gentle whisper of the trees outside offered little solace to the tumultuous energy swirling inside me. My mind kept returning to Kyle. His expression etched in my memory, the vulnerability that colored his voice, the way his gaze had held mine just a heartbeat longer than necessary. There existed an essence, an elusive quality that defied articulation, yet its presence was unmistakable. I turned onto my side, shutting my eyes in a desperate effort to coax sleep into my restless mind. Yet the stillness only magnified my musings, and after what seemed like an eternity, I surrendered. The silence enveloped me heavy and oppressive, urging me to break free, to act and dispel the restless energy coursing through my veins. Gently extricating myself from the warmth of the covers, I made my way silently down the corridor. The gentle illumination of the moonlight poured through the windows, creating elongated shadows that wailed across the walls. Uncertainty clouded my mind, yet my feet propelled me forward, guiding me toward Kyle's room as if they possessed a will of their own. The door stood slightly open, allowing a soft glow from a lamp to spill into the hallway. For a fleeting moment I found myself, frozen, my heart racing within my chest as I weighed the decision to knock. Yet, just as I was about to make my choice, his voice reached me, gentle and tinged with uncertainty. "You can come, Ian," he said, his voice steady yet tinged with a hint of doubt, with a difficult swallow. I opened the door and entered the room, Kyle perched on the edge of his bed, his hands resting gently in his lap. His hair bore a casual disarray, and the subtle shadows beneath his eyes hinted at a restless night. I observed that he was engaging in the same behavior as when I entered his room before. Yet this time it felt as though we both were indifferent to the occurrence, struggling to find rest. I inquired gently, resting against the doorframe. He shook his head, a faint weary smile gracing his lips. Too many. Thoughts swirling in my mind, I suppose. Nodded, fully grasping the situation. I feel the same way. For a brief instant remained silent, the stillness enveloping us, resonating with the soft glow of the lamp perched on his nightstand. The atmosphere was charged dense with unspoken words, and I found myself uncertain about how to shatter it, or if I truly desired to. "I've been thinking," Kay said suddenly, his voice slicing through the silence, about what you mentioned earlier, about not needing to meet anyone's expectations. I ventured deeper into the room, gently shutting the door behind. "What is there to say about it?" Kyle paused, his eyes falling to his hands. "Itis merely can be difficult too. Except at times it seems as though I've dedicated my entire existence to conforming to the expectations of others. And now I find myself at a loss for how to break free from this cycle." His words crashed over me like a wave, compelling me to traverse the room and take a seat beside him on the bed. "Kyle," I murmured gently, resting my hand on his arm. "There's no need to have everything sorted at this very moment. Taking things one step at a time is perfectly acceptable." He gazed up at me, then his eyes brimming with a blend of uncertainty and an exploration of profound depths. A moment that caused my heart to flutter. What if I am left, questioning my very identity without all of that? He inquired, his voice scarcely rising. Above a murmur, I grasped his arm softly, my feelings a tempest within me, as I searched for the perfect words to express myself. "You remain unchanged. Kyle, expectations do not determine your essence. You possess a depth that transcends the surface even if the weight of the moment obscures it from view." Kyle's eyes held mine, and I sensed the palpable intensity of his feelings enveloping the space. "Between us, you make it sound so simple," he remarked, a subtle nostalgic smile playing on his lips. "It's not," I confessed, my voice now a mere whisper. "Yet that doesn't simply, it's beyond the realm of possibility. You possess a strength that often goes unrecognized for a fleeting moment." The silence enveloped the space once more, yet it held no discomfort. The warmth of his presence enveloped me, while the soft hum of the lamp bathed the room in a gentle glow. In that instant, it felt as though the entire universe had dissolved, leaving just the two of us, enveloped in this singular experience. "Thank you," Kyle said at last, his voice unwavering yet tinged with feeling. "There's no need for gratitude," I responded, my voice gentle. Yet as the tension began to dissipate, I found it impossible to overlook the way his gaze held mine, nor the way my heart quickened in reply. An unarticulated tension lingered in the air between us, a delicate matter neither of us seemed prepared to face. Kyle moved subtly his and grazing mine as he repositioned himself. The encounter was fleeting, nearly serendipitous, yet it coursed atremor through my being, my breath halting in mid-throat. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he murmured, his eyes falling to our hands now resting side by side. "You'll never have to find out," replied my voice, quivering ever so slightly. Kyle lifted his gaze to meet mine, his eyes probing for an elusive answer I couldn't fully grasp. The atmosphere in the room was thick with an almost palpable tension, a current of energy that danced between us, both thrilling and daunting. In that instant, I realized that everything between us had irrevocably changed. Kyle's eyes locked onto mine, unwavering and probing, and I sensed the gravity of his stare permeating every fiber of my existence. My heart raced, each beat loud and insistent, reverberating in my ears. As the moment lingered between us, I ought to have turned my gaze elsewhere, to have uttered words that might have alleviated the strain to bring us back to the easy rapport we once enjoyed. Yet I found myself unable to do so. I stood still, ensnared by the depth of his gaze, the raw vulnerability and longing that shimmered within it. "Kyle," shifted subtly, his hand grazing mine once more, and this time neither of us withdrew. The connection was charged a surge that coursed through me, igniting a tremor along my spine and leaving my skin alive with sensation. A gasp lodged itself in my throat, and an undeniable warmth surged within my chest, demanding my attention. "You've always been there for me," Tale said softly, his voice low and filled with deep emotion. Even in moments when I struggled to articulate my need for assistance, I realize I have never conveyed to you the depth of my gratitude for your support. His words crashed over me like a tidal wave, and it swallowed hard, my throat constricted with emotion. "Kyle," I murmured, my voice quivering just a touch. "You needn't say that. Your significance in my life has always been profound. My only desire is for your happiness." His lips formed a subtle, bittersweet smile. "I'm not quite sure what happiness looks like for me just yet," he confessed, his eyes falling to our hands where our fingers lingered, barely touching. "Yet I am aware that in your presence I sense the possibility of unraveling the complexities that surround me." The fragility in his voice tugged at my heart, igniting a deep desire to soothe him, to assure him that all would be well. Yet as I parted my lips to utter a sound, I discovered that the words eluded me. Instead, I extended my hand, my fingers awfully wrapping around his. Kyle gazed up at me, then his eyes wide and brimming, with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. "I don't want to mess this up," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "Assured you, my voice calm and unwavering, that you wouldn't make any mistakes. Allow me to assist you with what you're occupied with, Kyle." For a fleeting instant, we remained still, the silence enveloping us, thick and electric. In that moment, Kyle inched closer, his actions tentative-tinged, with a sense of doubt, as if he anticipated my intervention. At any moment I did not. His lips grazed mine, hesitant and delicate, and I sensed my heart falter for a moment. The kiss lingered gently, a touch of uncertainty in its softness, yet it ignited a warmth within me that was impossible to overlook. My hands acted on their own accord, uneasily placed on his arm, while the other cradled his face, my fingers gliding over the subtle stubble on his jaw. In that fleeting instant, the entirety of existence faded into oblivion. Silence enveloped us, a void, devoid of light in time. Yet the warmth of his lips brushed against mine, accompanied by the rhythmic pulse of my heartbeat, creating an all-consuming sense of connection that saturated the air around us as we finally separated. Our foreheads, gently touching, a torrent of emotion surged within me. Impossible to decipher amidst the chaos and trepidation, there lingered an inexplicable, profound sense of righteousness that I found impossible to articulate. I had offered my assistance, and it was evident that he appreciated it, yet a lingering sense of regret tugged at me. "Kyle," I started, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "This is, I know," he said, his voice quivering just a touch. "I understand that it is intricate. I wanted you to understand the depths of my emotions." His words wrapped around my chest like a vice, and I let out a shaky breath, my hands lingering on his arms. "This is not a matter to be dismissed," I murmured, my tone unwavering even as a tempest of feelings swirled within me. "I'm not here," pied, his tone sincere. "This has occupied my thoughts extensively. I have attempted to dismiss it, to cast it aside, yet it remains inescapable. You are the singular presence that allows me to embrace my true self." His honesty was a blend of sorrow and solace, evoking a twinge of guilt for the feelings that welled up inside me. This was a realm yet to be explored, and uncertainty loomed over my next steps. Yet as I gazed into his eyes, a singular truth crystallized within me. The undeniable connection between us was impossible. To overlook text, "I care about you, Kyle." I finally confessed, my voice quivering just a touch beyond what you might truly comprehend. However, caution is essential. It is essential for us to contemplate the implications of the situation. Hank Klein had his eyes locked onto mine with unwavering intensity. Understand, I wish to hold on to this tightly. This, whatever it may be, I wish for it to remain forever. It doesn't have to. I murmured, my hands gently settling in my lap. However, we must proceed with caution. We must ensure certainty. Kyle nodded once more, his face revealing a blend of resolve and fragility. "I'm prepared to do anything necessary," he murmured softly. The earnestness in his voice stirred something deep within me, and I responded with a faint, hesitant smile. "We will find a way," I declared, my voice unwavering in unison. Kyle's lips curled into a subtle smile for the first time. That evening, a soothing tranquility enveloped me. The atmosphere in the room shifted the earlier, tension dissipating, giving way to a serene acknowledgement that though challenges lay ahead, we would confront them side by side. As I prepared to depart, Kyle extended his hand, his fingers lightly grazing mine. In a wordless expression of intimacy, I turned my gaze toward him, my heart brimming with a complex blend of feelings that eluded precise definition. I gently squeezed his hand before stepping out of the room. The hallway seemed to embrace a newfound stillness, the atmosphere less oppressive in its presence. The path before me was fraught with challenges. I understood that much yet. As I retraced my steps to my room, an unexpected sense of hope began to blossom within me. No matter what lay ahead, we would confront it side by side. How do you perceive my actions? Is it typical for a stepmother to assist her stepson in such a manner? Or could it be mistaken? Kindly share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you very much.